All right, we have a very special guest today. The photographer for my wedding 11 years ago, who was a Reformed Baptist, rather ignorant towards Catholicism, thinking it was unbiblical, maybe not the fullness of the gospel, is actually considering Roman Catholicism. And 11 years later, out of the blue, he messaged me saying that I found your channel. I've been listening to Trent Horn and Jimmy Akin, and now he's considering joining OCIA. So without further ado, Scott, how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing well, buddy. It was such a, I don't know, blessing just to see your face pop up on YouTube the other day. Like I was saying, the algorithm is working. So whatever you're doing, you're doing a good job here. So
Yeah, appreciate that. I was kind of surprised because you had gone off social media 11 years ago. I mean, completely off the grid. Where's Scott? I'm sure he's doing fine, but you got off just like all of us should probably be doing. But yeah, do you mind if I share the message you sent me with our?
no, yeah, yeah. Let's go.
Okay. Yeah. So, excuse me. This was uh, the message that I got from Scott, and this was about a week ago. And I'll just read it. It said, and this is Scott. I had to come on Facebook to find you. Just wanted to say I've recently been on a journey from Protestant to Catholic, and I ran across some of your videos, and I was like, I know this guy. Just wanted to reach out and say blessings, my friend. So that, oh, I'm sorry, Scott. That was just such a beautiful surprise
Right,
because
right.
I'll just tell you, and then we'll start asking you some questions here. The past 11 years, because I converted right around the time I met you,
Right,
a little after, but
right.
and for these last 11 years, I've been pouring out my soul and prayers just for people to be saved or to convert to the Catholic Church, and I'm not seeing many results.
Mhm.
Well, you're one of two people in the last 2 weeks that have reached out to me and said, "Hey,
Wow.
yeah. I'm not saying it's my prayers, but it's
Sure,
just
sure, sure.
it's nice to finally get some dividends or some results here, maybe
Some
perhaps." But
validation for sure.
so, Scott,
Yes.
why don't you maybe just introduce yourself uh, apart from your faith, and then we'll get into the faith maybe a little bit there if that's okay with you.
Yeah, you bet. Well, again, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
About me, let's see. I live in Minnesota. I got 4 kids, a beautiful wife. We kind of live out in the country, do a little homesteading, homeschooling kind of lifestyle. I work from home. I'm a software engineer, so a lot of my time is just spent with the family, and I love it. Wouldn't trade it for anything. And so if you hear some knocking on the back, it's probably one of the kids or the wife. But yeah, so I'm here. And I don't know how much you want me to go into my spiritual background, or if you have questions with that, or I can start now.
Yeah, let's do that. So you what did you grow up as? And then I know you were on kind of a 20-year spiritual journey from college. So what were
Yep.
you raised as? And then maybe transition into this journey that's leading up to you messaging me, maybe.
Right. So, brief background. My dad is retired military. So growing up, we were all over the place, and I was baptized in a Presbyterian. But as we kind of moved between different stations, I was confirmed an Episcopalian. We were Methodist for a time. We were Baptist for a time. So it's kind of how I was raised. Very throughout the different denominations. But I didn't really accept Christ as my king until I was about 18, and then I went off to college, and it kind of
Yeah.
just started to flourish from there. So
Wow. So yeah. So can I just press you a little bit? When you were
yeah.
18, you went off to college. Was there a specific moment or a combination of things that caused you to accept Christ in your heart, in
So,
contrast with being raised different denominations?
but I was always going to youth group, throughout growing up, but it was just more of kind of a, like a extracurricular activity I did outside of sports and school. But it really didn't take ownership until, yeah, I was a senior in high school. I was over in Germany, and through, I think, my sister, and also some really solid friends who followed Christ, really just showed me a way of living, and a love for the Savior that I've never experienced before, and I wanted that, and I took it on, and that's kind of what brought me into the fold. So
Wow. So you mentioned going from denomination to denomination growing up. Now, when you're 18 and you have this experience with friends in Germany, are you now a Reformed Baptist, or how did that work?
yeah, so we were going to a Baptist church, but I didn't learn about Reformed theology, Calvinism, tulip, any of that until like my second year of college. So I was still pretty ignorant on that kind of stuff. I knew that I loved Jesus, um, but I was very very immature in terms of just my understanding of theology and whatnot.
Sure, sure. So, Reformed Baptist, you're learning more in college about Reformed theology. Tulip, uh, tulip's always a fun one to talk
Sure.
about. But so after college, did you meet your wife? Or when did you meet your wife? Let's go there.
Yeah. So interesting. College was a great time. Made some really great friends. Really, really got deep in my faith. I was presented, that was right about when like the new Calvinism was coming on board. I mean, you're talking like Piper and Sproul and McGarth. All those guys were just books everywhere, conferences everywhere. It was just huge. And I was presented with Reformed theology and just this concept of like predestination and election, and when I was a sophomore in college, and I don't know what it was. I gravitated to it. A lot of it was probably maybe some peer pressure. A lot of my good friends were starting to become reformed. We lived in I was going to college in North Dakota,
Mm,
Minneapolis, Twin Cities. That's where John Piper's Bethlehem Church is. And so you'd go down there for conferences, the Desiring God conferences. So um and I loved it. I loved learning about it. I loved the theology. I loved digging, just getting to the meat of these kind of like really heady things. And I decided when I was a senior in college that I was going to go to seminary because
mm,
I was doing worship at that time, and I loved learning about God and learning about His economy. And I wanted to take. I don't know. I didn't know what I was going to do after seminary, but I know I wanted to continue on that path of scholastic just knowledge, right? And so my wife, met her in college. We got married a year, 6 months after. I think it was 6 months after I graduated from undergraduate, and you know, a week later we went off to Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. So they're a Southern Baptist seminary out in North Carolina, Wake Forest, and the Southern Baptist Convention. While they're not like exclusively Reformed, there's a lot of Reformed theology in the Southern, including a lot of professors there. And so I wanted to go there, right? And Danny Aiken, and so I went there for about a year to get my master's, and did a bunch of J-term classes, got half my MDiv, and at the same time, my wife is working 2 jobs. She gets, like, 8 hours off every 2 weeks because we wanted to pay out of pocket, right? We didn't wanna take more loans out to go, so she's busting her butt as a nurse to put me through, seminary, and I'm going through seminary, I'm learning all this stuff, and I'm loving it, and but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I
mm.
didn't even know if I wanted to go into ministry after it, and so I couldn't justify continuing to pay for this education and continuing to have my wife just go through the grind for whoever knows how long it was gonna be. And so dropped out of seminary at that point, and kind of did some other things, but that's kind of how it was. But I still stayed reformed and my theology, and continued to do that for probably another 6 years
Okay.
after I got out of seminary, 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you. You mentioned that there were some things that didn't sit right theologically.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe as a Reformed Baptist, you didn't have this peace or tranquility or whatever. Was there something specific in seminary or Reformed theology that you had a lack of peace?
Yeah, that's good. It's a good question. A lot of it was a lack of historical understanding of the church, right? So I start from 1500 and onward as my like roots in theology, and so I felt like I was missing like first 1,500 years of the church. And this is my own just ignorance on not really desiring to learn what the early church believed, as well as, there's just some things around, um, uh, you know, free will but man's responsibility, but uh, God has this ability to, predestine or elect certain individuals. And so, that whole, I mean, YouTube channels about that topic, right? But there was just something that I couldn't ever find a good enough explanation that made sense to me, right? And I would read Sproul's book on Chosen by God, and there's just things in there that I couldn't, that just didn't make sense to me. And I understand that there's, you can, things are chalked up to mystery, right? And everybody does it, no matter what theological camp that you're in. But there's just some things that as I read scripture, I it just seems so explicit that there is a responsibility of man to do things, and so that was like one big thing. I also saw like it, and I understand every church is different, and this is a big thing as we get onto the Catholic kind of conversion or um, kind of season now, is that there just seemed to kind of be like a, a lack of like authority, and also a lack of reverence when it came to worship or um, yeah. So those are kind of some big things that I was kind of struggling and wrestling with. But I thought I knew it. Like I thought like this is it, like Reformed theology. Like if you aren't Reformed, then either you're not reading your Bible, right?
Mhm.
Or like you are reading your Bible, but you're just being, you know, uh closed off to God's truth and revelation. And that was my mindset for many, many, many years. So
And then how did that make you feel about me when we had our discourse? I'm a Catholic, you're Reformed. Did you have that sort of perspective about me? I'm not reading my Bible right. I know we discussed some things about Mary and sola scriptura back in those days. What were you
yeah.
thinking? Like, was I nuts, crazy? Like how
Y-
like, what-
I don't think you were nuts. I didn't think you're nuts. I think and I have some friends who are Catholic too. I just thought that uh you were just, you, this is a
of
generally,
course, of
were
course.
just um so steeped in tradition that you're allowing man to uh dictate your understanding of true scripture, right? I never took the stance of Catholics weren't saved. I always believed, hey, if you accept Jesus as your savior, like you're justified. And I
Sure.
understand, depending on who you're talking about, what justification, initial versus, an ongoing or whatever. I always believed Catholics. So it was never this like, you guys are all going to hell, sort of thing. I did, but I also thought like it's the same argument over time. As I educate myself more, it's the same arguments coming up, and over time, Protestants have trouble with, Catholics or Orthodox or whatever. But the man can screw up over in history, and we've seen it screw up, and therefore, Catholicism can't be trusted because you had some bad popes, or you've had some bad bishops, or there's been
Mhm.
some controversies. Therefore, I can't trust Catholicism. And that was kind of my, it was very kind of me individualistic centered. But that was kind of my approach towards, but it wasn't just towards Catholicism. It was towards Arminius. It was towards Anglicans. It was towards, everyone. I just viewed it as like, I'm right. You know, everybody else is wrong.
Yeah.
It was just like a very arrogant sort of mentality. But
Yeah, I can't speak for everybody, but most converts, especially, like men that are into apologetics and theology, that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles there. But
right.
you brought up the Armenian. So you did tell me about a debate experience on
Yeah.
YouTube that you had. Why don't you tell us what your attitude was going into that debate, how that debate affected you, and maybe was that like a turning point or a seed planted for you?
Yeah, and glory be to God, because he humbled me, and I needed it big time. And um, like I just said, I was very arrogant in my theology and my faith, and I was traveling from we were traveling from a family vacation, and I had driven by myself because I needed to come back early, and I had 4 hours to buy, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch a debate or a podcast between a Calvinist and a non-Calvinist. And my intentions, my motivation behind watching this debate was not to be enlightened. It was to reinforce my skills or my apologetic tools, so that when I come across anybody who is not Calvinist, I would be able to just have answers ready for them. Right?
Mm.
I wasn't going in with like, oh, I should really hear what this non-Calvinist has to say about. And I can't even remember what the topic was. I think it might have been sola scriptura. No, because it wasn't, because it wasn't a, it was a Protestant, it was an Arminian. I think it was just why, one or the other is wrong or whatever. So I'm listening to this, and it's like a 2-hour debate, and I'm listening to it, and the non-Calvinist is giving such good examples for like why you can lose your salvation, right?
Mm.
The pea and tulip, right? Perseverance of the saints. If you're a new Calvinist, that's typically what you believe and stuff. But if they're giving arguments for, a typical like Lutheran argument, that you can lose your salvation, and it wasn't just like, oh, I feel this way that you can lose your salvation, but it's like grounded in scripture, it's grounded in history, it's grounded in like, um, all these different things that really just started to this. I felt the spirit just really working on me, and I got done with it, and I remember having conversations with my wife, and just being like, I think we need to go on like a faith journey, not like the faith journey like we're abandoning Christ, but like what do we truly believe God is revealing in Scripture, or revelation throughout history. And so it opened my mind, and that just led me down just years and years of learning
Mm.
about different topics and theology and doctrine. Yeah, and so that was kind of the gateway towards kind of our journey, because my wife and I are doing it together, as well as our kids, as we're bringing them along. Um, just like trying to be faithful, trying to be like, God, I want to know you. I want to know what you revealed to us, either through the church and scripture, or just scripture, or whatever it was at that time. I wasn't even considering Catholicism, and but I want to know what God has revealed to His creation. And so from that point on, we tried to just keep an open mind, and it went from kind of leaving our Reformed church to exploring more of an E-free, non-denominational church to try to figure out where we're at, to then leading us to a Lutheran church. And then
Wow.
eventually it led us to, I mean, you can see where we're kind of going, is like you go from this. And so the only thing I really haven't explored, as my wife and I are going to, is like, why haven't I considered Catholicism at all? Like, why have I just completely shunned it? And like, uh, if I truly want to be faithful and stand before God one day and be like, I God, I'm trying to hear your word, but I just didn't even touch Catholicism, right? I just left them there. I couldn't, just in good faith. My conscience couldn't allow me to do that. So over the last, I don't know, maybe 6 months, we've been kind of really looking into really pouring hours and hours and hours of our day and week into really studying, um, Catholicism and what it has. So,
Oh, I'm almost choking up because it just brings back so many memories in my own
mm,
personal experience. Now, don't let me forget about the conscience thing that you just said.
sure.
You don't let your conscience, right? But I do want to go back to your wife.
Mm,
So when you guys got married, you were of the same faith, right?
yep. Yep.
Okay, same
And in
tradition.
fact, I kind of converted her to Reformed theology. So,
Okay, sure. Now, what piques my interest really is when you have this uh, epiphany, whatever you want to call it, where it opened up the gateway, right?
yeah.
I mean, because that was you, but your wife, how did she respond or react to you explaining this epiphany gateway experience? Like how did that work? And then, because it's not that easy. I mean, maybe
Mm-mm,
she's just
mm-mm.
super docile to you. I don't know. Like,
No, no, it was there was a lot of tears and a lot of struggle and a lot of prayers because I mean, we spent years reading books and books and books and forming relationships and and converting family members and friends to a certain faith, you know, and we just thought we were. I just remember Bible study is just like, oh, you got this wrong, but really, God has this chosen. You're just injecting all this stuff into all your conversations, and there were tears on, like, we're having to leave everything that was familiar to us. We're having to leave our church because we
Mhm.
couldn't agree with it. We have friends there, um, and so it was not easy. There was a lot of tears, and there was a lot of prayer and a lot of just like, I don't know what to do, like a lot of surrender.
Mm.
Um, and that actually set us up for the same exact thing with the Catholicism kind of conversion. And there's a lot more actually to that we can get into later. But yeah, it was not easy, but my wife is loving and she's faithful and she loves Jesus more than I do. And she's just an amazing person. And so
Nice.
she submits to the leadership that I have, and she knows that I'm not just whimsically picking a faith to go, but we're going to go on this journey together, and we're going to seek His kingdom, and we're going to seek everything from God. And um, she had to be humbled too, and so we were kind of just doing this journey together, and it wasn't easy, and still isn't easy, but God's faithful, and we just know that He'll reveal Himself and His truth and His glory to us, where we go. So.
That's so beautiful that she confides in you,
Yeah.
looks up to you, trusts you, has that covenantal fidelity, in your
Right.
guys' marriage. That's beautiful. I think, again, I'm not speculating, but I think
Mhm.
that it's maybe something to do with what's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
that's such a grace to have a spouse and a wife like that. So I want to go back to the conscience really quickly.
Yeah.
I don't want to involve myself too much, but an integral part of my conversion was listening and having fidelity to my conscience. So growing up my whole life, living in sin and all that, whatever, things would prick my conscience, but I just put them under the rug or on the back burner, so to speak, because if I were to entertain them, it would get in the way of my life of dissipation and licentiousness and
Mm.
fun and pleasure and all that stuff,
Right.
right?
Right.
But once I started listening to my conscience, everything, it was just a domino effect. Everything just fell into place. Like everything that I was reading and listening to, and just everything was pointing to Catholicism. So, how important would you say fidelity to your conscience? And hopefully it's a formed conscience, but that's another talk. But how important is listening to your conscience when you're on this spiritual journey?
Yeah, kind of like I said, when I stand before Jesus one day, I want to be able to say, um, to the best of my ability, I sought your
Yep.
truth,
Yep.
and I don't, and I'm not okay with just saying it's too hard or it's too complicated or let my complacency and laziness get in the way. Like, I have the means and the ability to continue to seek His truth, and my wife has the same mentality, and that's just kind of the approach that we've taken, especially coming, the last 20 years being so arrogant and so just, you know strong-willed on, like, for sure, reformed theology has to be like, there wasn't even a doubt in our mind that we were could be wrong. And just kind of coming out of that, and I think with wisdom too, as I'm growing in age, wisdom tends to manifest itself a little more. Um, that's kind of like almost like internally vowed that I wouldn't make that same mistake, that I'm going to do diligence, and then once I can understand and study and have the things before me, the cards placed before me to the best of my ability, uh, mind, soul, heart, matter, conscience, I'm going to pick what I feel uh, like is, you know, truth. And so, that's So conscience plays a lot. I'm thinking, I've been reading through Romans. I've been reading a lot, but Romans is kind of a study that I'm going through here
Right.
in the first chapters. Just like even when it's talking about sin, they didn't have the law, but their conscience, they had to is going to play a role in when they stand before Christ one day.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing where we have a conscience for a reason, right? And the Spirit's going to work through that, and so it's something that my wife and I just really put a lot of weight on. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Well said. Yeah. So why don't you tell us what so how long have you been on the journey? Not altogether from this denomination to that denomination, but on the journey strictly like kind of towards Catholicism. How long has that been in the work?
yeah, it hasn't been a lot, but it's felt like years. I think it's probably since the start of the year,
Okay.
the start of
Yeah.
the new year, and but it has reignited my passion for his kingdom. Like I don't know if I've ever felt this way before. Um, and the only words I tend to uh, describe to the people that I have had these kind of conversations with is like, it feels real. Like that's the word that I keep coming back to. Like it just feels real. Catholicism, and I'm not a Catholic yet in terms of like, I haven't been initiated by the church but like as my wife and I are studying through these things and we're reading these things, and we're listening to podcasts and speakers and going to mass, like it's so different. It's just so different, between Protestantism and Catholicism. In
Yeah.
my mind, it's like night and day. Like
Yeah.
and that's why it's been so hard to really compare the two, because it's just completely different.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're going to mass. So and so the start of the year, so January, and we're in April now. So you you and your wife and your kids, I think you told me you go to I'm sorry, you go to mass on Sunday in the morning, and then later on you have a role in your Lutheran parish and then you guys go over there. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So part of this kind of faith journey that we're on is, I don't want to just read these books. I just don't want to watch Joe Heschmeyer. I don't want to just read
Sure. Yeah.
read Trent Hard and all this. Like
Yeah.
um, I want to experience mass, and I want to experience the people and the church. And so, at 8 o'clock in the morning, we'll go to mass. And I've been going to a bunch of different parishes
Oh,
around here, just to kind of just because we live out in the country. It's not like there's one like 5 minutes away from us. It's like I got to drive 15 minutes and 20 minutes in either direction. So I've been just kind of checking them all out and getting a feel for what they're like. And they sure are kind of different. They're all kind of different, just like you would find in all different Baptist churches. They just kind of do everything a little bit differently, and so it's kind of good to understand. But yeah, then we'll come. We'll do mass at 8. We'll go to 9:30 Sunday school at our Lutheran church, and then we'll
mhm.
do regular church service at 10:30 at our Lutheran service. So yeah, it's kind of been like that for the last couple months. Just kind of double dipping here and there as we kind of
Mhm.
what I don't want to do is just straight up abandon my Lutheran church,
Mhm.
because I saw something that was extremely convincing.
Right.
Again, I want to make sure that I'm prayerful in this, and yeah, so that's kind of how things work out on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, does it confuse your kids at all, or do they ask questions like, "Why are we going to this Catholic church and then this Lutheran?"
Yeah, yeah. So there is some confusion. There has been some confusion brought up, especially when you talk about the five big things in Catholicism that you hear every time you talk to that are stumbling blocks for Protestants.
Mhm.
You know, praying to the saints, communion of the saints, the Eucharist. Because we didn't come from a traditional Eucharist, like a Luther. We came from, it's a memorial sort of sacrament, right? Or baptism, in the sense of like infant baptism.
Yeah.
And so there's like big things are the Pope, the papacy, apostolic succession, like all this stuff is like they've never learned that. And as they go through their kind of they call it BSF, it's like a Bible study fellowship sort of thing weekly, like they're not being taught that, they're being taught the opposite. So now here mom and dad are
Mm,
kind of introducing some new concepts to them, that what we've noticed that is that at least for our older kids, there has been some initial resistance. I think we all do that. There's like this always this initial resistance with it. A lot of it is like because you're just unfamiliar, like it's foreign to you. You know, you're presented with these ideas that are uh to you, all you know is like this is how God you know, instituted communion, and now you're telling me that that's not what I've learned for these last 11 years is not right. And so, but they've been, you know, they're just, my kids are great. They're just like my wife. They're just, you know, they submit to their parents, and they know that mom and dad has the best for them. And we try to instill that into them, that, hey, we're not doing this to get more friends or because it feels comfortable. In fact, it's actually going to be the opposite. We're going to have
yeah.
zero friends. It's going to be very uncomfortable, but like we want to be as faithful as we can to God. And so it's going to be weird at first, but you know, trust us as your parents that, you know, we're going to try to take you to where we believe, you know, truth can be found, or truth exists. So
So, do you have immediate or non-immediate family members that know about what you're doing with this whole Catholic thing?
yeah, so we've tried not to be stage gauge, right? And with our Catholicism, because we made that mistake when we were reformed. Are you familiar with that term, stage gauge?
I'm just guessing like you're really open about it?
Yeah, yeah.
Or
It's more of like the concept is like you put these people in a cage
mhm.
because you don't want them out going, you know, being extremely charismatic
Oh,
about
yeah,
and
okay.
about their, so like, you know, we I brought it up to parts, some members on my side of the family, and also some members on my wife's side of the family. So we have brought them up, as well as some friends. So yeah, we're not just closet converts right now. We are trying to, you know, we want to be honest. We don't want to. I mean, if this is God's truth, the last thing we want to do is, you know, hide it in a box, right? We're
Amen,
gonna,
amen.
you know, we're gonna be faithful, you know, and if we're wrong, we're wrong. But all we can do is the best of our ability to proclaim what we believe is being revealed to us, and if we burn some bridges along the way, you know, where there'll be some suffering in this life, right? And I'm not going to, for the sake of friends and family, uh, going to surrender my allegiance to Christ, right? And so
Beautiful.
I'm not going to be ashamed. And so that's kind of the approach we're doing. We're doing it gently and patiently, but diligently and persistent. You know, and we just have faith that people will actually see our hearts, but also will be, you know, uh, emboldened and enlivened to you know, God's truth as well on this journey. Like we hope people through our journey will also come with us on their
Yeah, right.
journey
Yeah,
as they kind of explore and find find their uh find their hope. So
that's beautiful. It seems like you're well, I'm not trying to put words in your mind or your mouth, but you're anticipating things that might happen if this were to go through, which is good. I think it's very astute of you guys to do that and
yeah,
to know that it's going to be hard. There's going to be suffering, but Christ told us, you know, we have a cross, but not only that, we're supposed to love him more than our mother, father, brother, sister, siblings, spouse, daughter, children. So, yeah, that's beautiful. Now, I do want to ask you when you're going to mass, and maybe
yeah.
you, if you want to relate your wife to this, do you guys experience anything of maybe like a hunger or a yearning, or do you have any consolations or spiritual experiences, or does it just make you more curious? I mean, what is your experience when you're going to mass and because you can't receive Holy Communion? So what does that feel like? What is that, how does that, I don't know.
Yeah. You know, I do long for receiving the Eucharist. I do long for that, but I understand why it's not just flippantly given to anybody who walks through the door, right? And so but as I'm going to mass, the biggest thing is just like there's just a different level of reverence that I've experienced going to mass than I would in like a non-Catholic worship service, right?
Yeah.
It actually winds up being more, you know, I read Scott Hahn's what is it? Not the fourth cup. It's
That's a great one, though.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I just finished that one, but the Lamb's Supper, right,
Yeah,
where he talks about the Mass and
Revelation.
Revelation,
Yeah.
yeah, heaven on earth here through the Mass. And I'm sitting here, and from the icons to the crosses to the Stations of the Cross to uh, just that everybody's kind of attitude, like it's just it just appears to be. I'm not saying a Protestant service can't be worshipful, but there's just a different level of reverence when you go to Mass that's way more worshipful, right? It's not going there just to sing a few songs and then be taught 45 minutes of, a sermon. It's like the entire thing is like offering God worship, his words back to him, right? And um it's been beautiful. I take my and I don't take my entire family every single time as we're going to all these different parishes to try them out. I'll take, my older daughter with me, and she'll go there and she'll watch, there's just I feel a different presence there, I guess, is
Mm.
all I'm saying. It's just there's a different my spirit's a little different and about it, and I feel like rightly so. I mean, if you truly believe that Christ is uh presence is in the elements, like, and he's there present in that form, um there's just something about that I
Yep.
feel is different than you know singing some Hillsong churches,
Yep.
singing some Hillsong songs during the day, um or during service. And so yeah, that's kind of been my experience. It's been like I look forward to it. Like I look forward to going to Mass, not because like I'm like required to go, even though like there is some like requirements to go to Mass. Like I truly long to
Mhm.
go to Mass. Like it's the first time that I shouldn't say first time, but there's just a high desire and adoration that I've been experiencing as I go.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's just I can
Yeah.
relate so well to what you just said because when I was a Protestant, going to worship services and stuff like that, I felt compelled to go because I would feel guilty otherwise, or it's just like this what we do. You should
Right.
go. You should just go. I didn't really genuinely long to go. Whereas
Right.
in the Catholic Mass, oh gosh, it's completely different. There's just so much more to. I mean, it's again, I don't want to like I don't want to proselytize here, but I mean, it's
Sure.
we believe that it is true worship in true religion. You know what I mean? Not
Right.
like you said, there are elements of truth and worship in Protestant communions. There are. So I'm not trying to be denigrating to Protestants, but yeah, something fundamentally different going on when you're at a Catholic Mass. Now, let me ask before I forget, are there any stumbling blocks or obstacles in the Catholic faith for you and or your wife as of now that's maybe holding you back, or you're just like, what?
Yeah, I mean, not I've gotten, like I said, there's like the five big things that initially when I started considering it that were very just difficult, right? Yeah, I'm having to like we are having to like untrain our brains in a way because you've been taught so long to like uh you can't pray to the dead, or you know baptism is for believers only. You have to like untrain yourself because it's been so just ingrained into us that it's hard. I remember coming out of Calvinism, you have to it's hard it was hard to after we kind of decided not to be reformed anymore, it was hard to read the scripture without the lens of reformed theology on everything you read. And I felt like there was initially there was some of that also. Um, but we kind of systematically went through all the kind of our big stumbling blocks, with the Marian dogmas, communion of saints, the Eucharist, baptism, priesthood, apostolic succession, the Pope, kind of those big things that you
Yeah.
typically see as like barriers to becoming Catholic. Like, and we just have just kind of tried slowly read and listened and studied as much as we can on these big barriers. And we were just going on a walk a couple days ago, my wife and I, and we were saying, like, logically we understand the Catholic position on all of these. It's now it's kind of like, do we truly believe,
Mm.
what it's teaching. Funny, I was going on a walk today and I was listening to a Popish, Shameless Poper. Is that Joey
Yeah,
Heschmeyer's
Joe
channel?
Heschmeyer, yeah.
And I listened to an old video called "When Should I Become Catholic?" I think is one of his things. It was like a 30-minute long. Like, hey, when should you actually become Catholic? And he's like, you don't become a Christian when you have everything figured out, dogmas about the Trinity and this and that and this. Like, you don't that doesn't stop you from becoming a Christian, right? And same thing with like Catholicism. You don't have to have everything completely understood and like able to be articulated back to stop you from becoming Catholicism, right? And so, I think my not stumbling block, but my one last barrier that I just need to do more understanding and studying is like uh the Pope. And so I bought Eric Ibarra's, like,
Mhm.
he has a large, what is it called, The Papacy. He has a big book about him and versus Orthodoxy. And so I'm kind of reading that, and uh the the head knowledge is there. Like, I completely understand it, that Peter was given these keys, right? What you bind and loose on this earth, and I totally, I can understand it. It's now just allowing that truth to be kind of believed and take action, and kind of my understanding of the whole thing. But other than that, like, I've Sola Scriptura was a big thing. That was like the first thing. I was like, if I could get over Sola Scriptura, if I could see that there was authority in the church, in tradition, I'm open to Catholicism. And so, funny, I the first thing that I did is I bought Trent Horn's book. Let me just get it so the viewers, if they ever need to see a cover of it.
Oh, Case for Catholicism?
Yeah. So, but there was this other one. So I bought this one, Case for Catholicism by Trent Horn, right? But then
Trent, I better get royalties. This is
yeah.
advertising. I get a
So,
kickback for that.
and the book that I already had was this, which was James
Oh,
White,
sorry.
The Roman Catholic Controversy. So I
I
already
wasn't
had this.
expecting that. I wasn't
Yeah. So I already had this book, and I'm not sure if this is what actually happened. But so this book came out much later,
Yeah,
or earlier than Trent's did, right?
yeah.
But I'm reading it, and it's almost like subchapter by subchapter, Trent's like rebuttal to James White's arguments. And I could
Oh,
go in almost to the headings. Like, so I encourage anybody who's like exploring Catholicism, get these two books. Go to a chapter on Trent Horn's about, I don't know, what what is the church, or like the Old Testament canon. You can go to this exact thing, subtitle and everything, the Old Testament, and you can read it. Just read both of them like at the
wow.
same time. And so it was really helpful for me to do that, because now I'm able to kind of cross-examine, both sides. Like, I can understand, instead of just being like, oh, I'm going to believe what Trent Horton has to say
Right.
and Protestants. Like, no, like, if I'm going to truly study this, like, I want to hear both sides of it. And so, and James White being a huge, like, anti-Catholic, apologist, I value that he has some experience and expertise in this area. So it's not like some no-namer. I'm going to pick up a book and understand the Protestant Reformed view. I'm going to try to grab the best of the best, and I'm going to compare. So this was having these two books, like, for the first few weeks, and just like reading them, praying through them, and then like supplementing them with other books that I have from seminary, and the new books that I'm buying, Scott Hahn, and all the podcasts that I'm listening. It's just has been just extremely helpful, and that's kind of how we've kind of broken down kind of this entry into exploring everything.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm intrigued. James White, Trent Horn, the
Yeah.
Roman Catholic controversy, and the Case for Catholicism, side by side, parallel, contrast, compare and contrast, rather. And I just, I'm kind of blown away. I mean, I know about both those books. I haven't read either of those books.
Yeah.
But do you think Trent Horn really did like a rebuttal almost to that book? Like chapter
Well,
for chapter?
the fact that he references this book many, many times in his own book,
Oh, sure.
makes me think. I mean, not makes me think, makes me know that he at least has this book, right?
Of course. Yeah,
And
he has a signed copy on his bookshelf.
right, and so it only I'm not gonna. I can't assume that's what Trent Horn does. It just happened
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
for maybe just for my benefit or anybody who's going to have these two and read them together. It's great. It's I mean you can just side by side read what both sides have to say, and
yeah.
um, it played itself out that way at least.
Okay, so I don't want to rehash the whole obstacle thing, but is there anything holding you guys back? Or I know you're being very patient,
Yeah.
very prudent and shrewd about this whole thing, which is great. I think that's great how you're not just, you know, blindly going to, Trent Horn's books and just ignoring everything else that's around you. I think that's a conscientious decision to discern like what is
Mm,
truth, right? What is
right.
truth? I don't want to just haphazardly assume anything, but um, like if I were to just plainly ask you, what's stopping you from becoming Catholic? Would there be anything, or is there
Uh,
not?
yeah. So I think we're at uh, my wife and I are at the point now where I mean we're reading the liturgy of the hours with our kids every night, right?
Oh
Where
wow,
like we're going through this Linton season has so this is the other thing I wanted to mention, right? It's Lent, right?
yeah, yeah.
And the timing of this I don't think could have been better. Like God like ordination of like ordaining or not ordination, but ordaining of like my family kind of coming into the fullness of his truth during the Lenten season, I think has just it's it takes the focus off my own kind of like uh higher education knowledge things to really point it back towards the cross, right? As we're kind of exploring this. And so during this season, as we're just in deep prayer and penance and other things, it's been really great because we've really just fallen in love with um, a lot of things that the church does. And so to answer your question, there's nothing really stopping us right now, other
Okay.
than you know, like I said, I do some worship at uh, I play some worship at our Lutheran church that we're going to, and I want to sit down with the. I've already sat down with our pastor to kind of just, hey, I'm going through this right now. What kind of input do you have on as I'm kind of studying this, right? And I mean, at the end of the day, he is the shepherd of his church, right? And if I was a pastor, I would want to know if there's some sheep in my congregation who are struggling with something. So I have the
Or
ability
goats?
to, yeah, yeah,
I'm just
right.
kidding.
um, at least I want him to be aware of what our family is going through
Of
right
course.
now. And so, I'm going to have another conversation with him to just let him know that we're going to be kind of stepping away,
Mhm.
and whether it's indefinitely or not, I don't know this time. All I know is that the Lord's kind of leading me towards the Catholic faith, and yeah, just let him know. I don't want to leave him hanging. And so once kind of our obligations there are done, my plan was actually to reach out because I said we had been going to a bunch of different parishes. We need to decide on which one we're going to kind of commit to, and then my plan was to kind of reach out to the father there and just or whoever's in charge administratively about the OCIA classes, and kind of just really start to get plugged in um, with that and really just commit to a parish. And so that's kind of where we're at. And so probably in the next, I would say, few weeks, we're going to be kind of making that transition as a family to start, you know, doing that full time. So
Yeah. Well, I'm
and
gonna.
we're excited. We're so excited. Like we're excited. I mean, internally we're kind of already there. We just need to externally, well, and externally we're kind of there. We just need to commit more
Yeah.
externally to it. So.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll be praying for you, but I'm gonna be getting a lot of my subscribers hopefully to be praying for
Mm,
you guys too.
cool.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
they'll be glad to pray for your guys' journey and discernment and your everything, your family and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So yeah. I was gonna ask quickly, have you guys dabbled, that's not the right word, but whatever, into like the lives of the saints, praying to saints, Our Lady, the Rosary, anything with that?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So um a lot of head knowledge, so a lot of reading on these topics. We haven't started praying the Rosary yet.
Mhm.
We have started praying to Mary, and I'm going through the catechism right now, the Catholic catechism. I'm doing a lot of the Ascension Press stuff. They put a lot of good material. So doing, funny thing is Father Schmidt is here in Minnesota, so maybe we'll make a
Yeah.
trip up there to go see him. But like
Yeah.
doing his Bible in a year, not that I haven't read the Bible, but like going through the Bible in a year from a kind of a Catholic perspective, right? And so, this is great. Reading the catechism every day, kind of understanding that. And so what was the question again? Oh,
Well,
train of thought.
sorry. Hold on. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you said you've gone through the Bible, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
have you gone through the Catholic Bible?
Right. And so that's another thing, I guess I haven't gone through the entire Bible,
Yeah. But, I was just
but
talking about the saints and the prayers
oh
and the
yeah,
rosary and all that
right,
stuff,
right.
but
So the other thing that first thing I did was like, what did the church fathers? This is one of the big things that kind of I haven't really said what like kind of convinced us, but one of the big contributing factors was the early church. Like
Mm.
I can't read Ignatius and Irenaeus and Cyril and Jerome and like not see that they taught transubstantiation. Like I can't. And if these people are sitting under the apostles or within a generation of the apostles, and this is what they're teaching, and it's hard pressed to find anybody who wasn't teaching that, like, and until 1300s or whatever, uh, that uh, says something, and so we really took that to heart. We really started considering that. So one of the early things that we did was, again, pulling out my book. I don't have the other one, but we bought this collection of the early church writings of the early church fathers. It's called
Oh,
the Faith of the Early Fathers. I'm missing one. My wife has the first volume, but it's literally just all the writings of Saint Augustine of Hippo. Like it's just all their writings, and so
nice.
now you can. I mean, Saint Ignatius. If you haven't read Saint Ignatius, it's like 7 letters. It'll take you 15 minutes. Like
Yeah.
go through there and tell me that he didn't teach uh transubstantiation or the authority apostolic
Yep.
bishops and there's so that was a big thing. So that has also sparked just a great, I don't know, joy in reading like our early church fathers and what they wrote and like how close they were to the source. And so we really wanted to consider that, or we felt pressed that we needed to consider that as we kind of went through this journey. So yeah, to answer your question, we've definitely explored early church fathers, uh, praying to the saints. We haven't done the Rosary yet.
Mhm.
My wife just got finished reading another book by Scott Hahn called Holy Mother. I don't know. He wrote a book about Mary,
Yep.
and so my wife just got finished reading that and has been sharing some stuff with me about that. And so we have kind of done a lot of the new stuff, and that's why I said it's so different. Like
Mhm.
that's why it's been so it's been difficult to kind of understand this. It's also made me extremely hungry and thirsty to to learn all this stuff because it's just so foreign. It's so foreign to the Protestant. And I was having a conversation with my brother-in-law a few weeks. He came down and visited us, and we got in a conversation. He's Protestant, and his wife works at an E Free church, and um, I was having I was kind of sharing kind of our journey that my wife and I are going on, and he had a lot of questions, but um, I just had to explain him like you have to understand when you're trying to understand, if you're trying to refute XYZ doctrine in Catholicism, like you might want to understand what they first truly believe instead of saying, well, I don't think we should pray to anybody other than God. And like that's a common thing. Like I see it all the time is like um getting past like or truly understanding what Catholics believe before you reject them, understand what they truly mean by praying to the saints,
Right.
right? And so it's you got to kind of get over that mindset, and it was difficult for a while, but through God's grace and the Holy Spirit just really softening us and allowing us to be humbled. You know, we've had great love and joy and realness and I don't know, reverence and just I don't know. There's just this je ne sais quoi or whatever,
Mhm.
about it that it's hard to put into articulate, about, um, feeling like you're so close to the source of God's revelation, to man, and being a part of it. So
Yeah. Who would you say is, as far as like a big time author or apologist or whatever? So don't, not the church fathers, but more
sure.
contemporary or whatever. So like Trent Horn and all those dudes. Who would you say like kind of helped you the most in understanding really what we teach, and it made sense to you in a concrete way?
Yeah, I think Joe Heschmeyer actually does
Ah,
the best for me.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the way he systematically presents arguments really aligns with the way I think, and so it's been super helpful for him to, when he's deconstructing an issue or constructing a rebuttal, he does it very, in a way my mind, uh, is kind of orientates towards. But I know that that doesn't work for everybody because sometimes it could be really heady, right? And it's hard to follow. And so I think somebody that, uh, is not on that level, even though I wouldn't say Joe is trying to be like, very, uh, intellectual.
yeah, yeah. I gotcha. Yeah.
I think Trent Horn is a great. We listen to Lila. I mean, all your
Mm,
kind of your big kind of, uh, uh,
yeah.
Catholic evangelist. So Voice of Reason has been a big thing. Like Alex, Gerardo, like I listen to him all the time. I think he does a
Yeah.
good job at just very, uh, cleanly articulating things and simply for those who don't want a kind of a deeper, like kind of,
Right.
understanding of it. So like, man, all the like we're literally hitting it, trying to hit everybody, and we're trying to hear from everybody. And, um, we listen to Lila Rose all the time. We listen to Frad all the time. Trent Horn, Joe. I mean, the big names, right? Is what we, and that, and essentially that's kind of how you popped up, Eric. It was like, the algorithm knew that I'm craving for more of this, like, Catholic apologetic, like, content, and, there you are. And I was like, I think I did a double take. I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah,
And
you
it
took
didn't
our wedding
and it
photo.
and it didn't take me long to really to realize who it truly was. And I remember we had a conversation. I think we had a conversation. I couldn't find the receipts of our conversation, but I know we had talked about something about Catholicism when you were first getting into it. And, uh yeah, it was just, yeah, it was
Here.
a godsend. So
Yeah, I'll pull it up here. So this is one of our conversations we had back in 2014. I think it
where
was
did you find it? Because I was like looking through my email boxes, I was looking through Facebook.
there.
I couldn't find it.
Oh, not that one. I'm so sorry. Hold on just a second. Gotta, there we go. So this was it says 10 years ago. Can you see it?
Yeah. Oh, so it was on a post. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was on a post. Yeah. Oh, dude, this took me an hour at least, but
Oh,
it was
yeah. I spent many times trying to find our conversation. I had no idea where it was.
it
So this
says
is
10
good.
years, but it was probably like uh 10.6 years, whatever, it doesn't
Okay.
matter. But
Sure.
what we were talking about sola scriptura and going back and forth,
Yeah.
just debating rhetoric stuff. But
Yep.
I highlighted this at the bottom. This is maybe one of your last things you've ever said to me, like almost 11 years ago. And you said, I really would like to know what it was that convinced you to become Catholic. Was it a friend, a book, a dream, a sermon, a movie? It's a big decision to switch like that after 30 years. And I respect you for whatever reason it was. I'm sure it was well thought out and prayed about. And I'm
Mm.
just like, I wonder what kind of, if you were to see this, and
Yeah.
how would that make you feel in your position?
Are you sure that was me? You sure I wrote that?
100%.
I'm kidding. I'm
100%.
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could pull up
Um,
my Facebook if you really want me
no,
to.
no, 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 no. I'm kidding. Man, yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
weird, huh? Or
Yeah,
just
it
maybe
was. And like,
surreal.
yeah, 20 years later, 18 years or 10 years later, but 20 years after I kind of, came to the faith. Yeah, here I am. Who knows that the conversations that we had, occupied a place in my brain, right? And
Yeah.
as I'm as I saw your face pop up, something, uh I don't know. God has a way of using things in our past to point us towards Him, and so um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I just when you messaged me out of the blue last week or whatever, instantly what came to my mind were those dialogues we had
mm,
on my Facebook or whatever about soul
yeah,
secure, Mary, and some other things or whatever, and they were cordial, they were ecumenical, they weren't polemical or anything, at least not that I thought. And I'm just like, I hope maybe that did something. And I know
yeah,
I prayed for you. I know I did. It's not like I didn't, because if I was talking to somebody that wasn't a Catholic and it was about the faith, I prayed for that person. I probably forgot about praying for you. I don't know how many years
sure,
after. It's been 11
right,
years. I don't know.
right.
Yeah. But oh yeah, that's great. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, or did we forget something? Or a lot of people will probably watch this. So, well,
Yeah,
not a lot, but you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah.
Or
You
ask me
know,
anything.
family are one of the big things that we're kind of struggling with is you had asked about if any family, um if we had brought it up to family members, and we had, and there is some drama there, that um we're not looking forward to. But yeah, we're just kind of approaching like we have faith that God is going to move mountains, in people's lives, and we can only pray that our journey is a means by which He, um, can reveal His truth to them, and um, but there's family dynamics for sure. There's friend dynamics, but I we live to please God and not man, and kind of that's kind of been our one of our mottos we've been kind of applying through this period is, we answer to God at the end of the day, and um but yeah, I mean, that's kind of us in a nutshell, is just trying to be faithful, and we're gonna fail, but we do, through God's love for us, and um faithfulness to us, even in the midst of our unfaithfulness. He's still good and loving, and that's great. First questions for you. What? Okay, so I remember when we had our dialogue, even though I don't remember where the dialogue. I remember we had dialogue,
Yeah.
and you were pretty passionate. One thing I remember about is you were very passionate about it, about your recent conversion to Catholicism, and I thought it was, I thought it was, it felt to me, it felt like a Paul on the road to Damascus thing, right? We had shot your wedding, right? And by no means were you like, or correct me if I'm wrong, but by no means you were like a devout, like, uh, Christian, and that's not that you weren't a Christian, but like, you know, you weren't going to mass every day. You weren't, obviously you weren't even Catholic at that point, but uh, not that you were also persecuting the church. That's not what I'm saying by your by
Well,
relating you to Paul.
in a sense, I kind of was before my conversion. Sure.
Sure, sure, right. So, and then I remember seeing something as you went to Catholicism, and you were very vocal about it. I remember,
Mhm.
maybe you weren't, but I recall you
Oh
being.
yeah,
I
I was.
remember you being vocal about.
Yeah.
And so I remember just being like, oh, interesting, something. And I wonder if maybe that's why what you know, uh, encouraged me to ask that last question about, what changed you? Because I saw this change of like you kind of not, again, I'm not saying you didn't take your faith
Just
seriously, but
say it.
let's,
Just say it.
yeah, not retrospectively looking, comparing
Mhm.
to how you are now with your faith, it appeared that you weren't um, like super active, publicly in your faith, to being someone who's
Right.
like sold out, right? And so I was like, oh, it's kind of like Paul, like apart from the persecution, but like, he goes from being this nobody to being like one of the apostles, right? And just being very outspoken, and going and sharing his faith with everybody. And I saw that in you, and I do remember that. And so, what for you? What was it like going from I'm committing to Catholicism because I see it's God's truth and love and realness, to being like, I need to go. like make videos now about it. Like I need to go on YouTube and start posting it. I know this is not about me, but I'm kind of curious. We haven't caught up
Yeah.
in 10 years,
Yeah.
but
So, gosh, man, you opened a little can of worms, but it's a
yeah,
good
sorry.
it's a good can of worms. It's a good can. So, there was a radical transformation in my life, actually, and it started before my conversion, like when I was actually received in the Catholic Church. I don't know, I just received a lot of graces, and I started to stop getting drunk, and I don't want to get into all the sins, but
Sure.
slowly, my conscience was cleansed. It was just
Mm,
free, because it wasn't darkened by mortal sin constantly. And so that was a huge grace for me. And I wasn't even thinking about Catholicism. Like, what?
mm,
No, I'm not. No, I don't play for that team.
mm,
I'm not doing
mm.
that. Well, once things started getting rolling, and gosh, I was in your guys' exact situation. I was reading everything Catholic. I was listening to everything Catholic. I couldn't get enough.
Right.
Seriously, it was like it's Catholic heroin. You can't get enough. And but yeah, when I finally did convert, the reason that I was so vocal about it is because, well, maybe a couple things. It's as if I found that treasure in the field,
Mm,
in the parable.
mm.
Like I
Yep.
found something that I've never had before, and it transcended everything,
Right.
everything. And I couldn't hoard it to myself. I couldn't be silent. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And then ever since then, I want my whole thing. Why I'm doing what I'm doing is just, I want to save souls. I want to save souls. I want to save souls. That's it. Everything else doesn't matter to me.
mm,
Um, but here's the thing. What I learned is I probably shouldn't have been as vocal, and I'll tell you why.
hmm.
There is two reasons. Prudence is a virtue that many people don't know about and don't practice or don't care to know about. And I don't think it was prudent to be so vocal so frequently
Mm.
because of the way it made people close to me feel, especially
Yeah.
Molly at the time.
Right.
I didn't respect the way it affected her
Right.
because I was so vocal about it. And then her friends, her family, my family, what is wrong with Eric? Is he some fundamentalist now? Like
Yeah.
we need to get an intervention on him. Like this is not normal or healthy.
This goes back to what I was saying about that stage cage. Sounds like
Yeah.
you might have had some stage cage,
Yeah.
scenario going on where like maybe Eric should have been put in the cage for a little bit, and,
Yeah.
and let him kind of simmer down, sorry, but
No, cage and put me in the zoo too. Like I needed to like chill out. And yeah, so uh shouting the truth from the mountaintop, so to speak, right? You got to be prudent. You got to like how is this going to affect people? To whom is this going to go out to? Is it going to
mm,
push people further away? Is it going to scandalize? Is it going to offend? There's a time and place to be prudent about it. So to Molly, really, I really that's my one regret. I wish I would have heeded her
mm,
requests to just here's the thing, Scott. I never brought it up in real life though. I never talked
mm,
about it to anybody. I
mm,
felt as though social media was that one outlet where I could just kind
mm.
of like let my heart pour out my faith. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. It's in the
Yeah.
past. I've learned a lot since then. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's it in a nutshell though.
Mm,
Do you
mm.
want to I always end the interviews with some fun questions.
Yeah.
They're going to be off the cuff, but whatever. I don't have them written down or whatever. But usually I do the either or game
Yeah.
or just ask you random questions. So you got to pick one. Like out of all those big Catholic apologists, who's your guy? Is it Joe?
I would honestly, I probably would have to say Joe, just because I
Okay.
listen to a lot of his topics are topics that I am interested in. And so I say, yeah, I think Joe. The fact that he just did a debate with James White recently too, kind of was helpful. But man, I've again, voice of reason actually, Alex. He was probably the first one that I started really just binge watching his stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, just and he's kind of making rounds too.
Oh, yeah.
He's making big waves. Sam Shamood. I watched Sam for a while. He has some really good apologetic stuff too that you know has been helpful. Just as I work through things. But yeah, I would say Joe's probably. I feel like I think the same as Joe, and so it just resonates really really well with me. So
All right, nice, nice.
yeah. What about
Uh,
you? Who's your kind
oh,
of go-to?
oh,
Uh,
it's not even a question. Dr. David Anders. I don't know if you heard of him.
no, I haven't. I'll have to
Well,
look him up. Yeah, send me some stuff.
yeah, EWTN. He has a show every day from 1 to 2 p.m. Central,
Okay.
and it's called to Communion. It's for non-Catholics. You need to be calling and emailing that show. And he's the
Mm.
brightest, most astute dude you will ever come across. And he's my absolute favorite because he taught me everything.
Tell
If
me
I
again.
know
I'm
it,
gonna
if
I'm
I
gonna
know
write this down so I
anything,
don't
it's
forget.
because of him.
What's his name again?
Dr. David Anders. But
Okay.
but but
Cool.
if you're gonna try to find him, you got to go to EWTN.
EWTN.
Yeah, it's called
Okay. Cool.
Call to Communion. Oh, dude, you will learn so much listening to him.
Really? Okay. Cool.
Call in, because you're
Yeah, I know.
non-Catholic, dude, and he will
Right. Right.
he will do stuff that I could not even dare to touch. So
That's
he's your
cool.
dude, man. He's your
Yeah.
dude. Now, can I ask you who your favorite saint is, or are we not there yet?
I we're not there yet.
All right, all right.
I was just I have this book that I read not every night, but before I go to bed some nights. It's called Forming Catholic Family Formation. Anyways, it's about book about raising your family to have virtues that you should instill in your kids and stuff. And one last the virtue that I was reading last night or the night before was on um being magnanimous, right? And after each one they kind of give you a saint that kind of personifies kind of these virtues, right? And of course I forgot his name. Saint Ignatius of Loyola, right? And so kind of reading kind of his story on his military adventures, but then kind of selling out to like educate, not selling out, putting that past behind him, and putting a lot of efforts and energy into like education and forming the Jesuits. It kind of resonated a little bit with me. But yeah,
It's okay.
there's so many that I still need to read that I've
Yeah.
just scratched the surface of all the different wonderful saints that I need to read about and study and commune with. So
Do you have a favorite church father?
Ignatius was a good one. Like he was probably the first one that I read. He was. I don't know if he's my favorite, but he was the one that always kind of stands out to me as I've kind of been reading. Just his kind of bravery and his martyrdom and he didn't, at least all the writings that we have, I'm sure he wrote much more, but at least the seven letters that we do have, the fact that he was writing them on his way to the
Yeah.
Colosseum, and his boldness. I'd be curious to see what that was like, where he was able to write these letters on his way to martyrdom, being a prisoner. I'm just kind of curious. Is he like in this wagon and he's like, chugging along, and like he has got one of his like scribes or peasants next to him, like riding alongside of him, and as he's like telling him what to write, or like did the soldiers give him? It would just be kind of curious to see how he was able to get these letters out, um but he wrote the seven letters that we do have, like some
Yeah.
really important things. So that's kind of one of them that kind of stands out in my mind. But
Nice.
there's a lot I still have to learn, right? A ton that I still have a lot to learn. I want to get into the Rosary, study a little bit more in the Rosary, and applying that. Like even getting a Rosary, is kind of I don't know. It seems like an important thing to me, and so I think that's kind of on the short list of things that I'll kind of start dabbling in here shortly, and yeah, yeah.
Couple more
What about you?
questions.
Yeah,
Oh,
hold on. What's your favorite
sorry,
thing?
sorry.
Yeah,
Saint Augustine. Yeah, no one comes
Saint
close
Augustine.
for me.
Yeah,
For me.
so I have this, you know, uh, I have this weird rub about with Saint Augustine, because Saint Augustine it was uh, constantly quoted by Reformed reformers.
Yeah.
Like it's like they're, so when I hear Saint Augustine, the only thing I think about is like,
Calvin.
oh yeah, Calvinism, and like I can't read him, right? And
Oh,
so it's a shame.
scandalized.
I know it's a shame, but I have his books. I got City of God, and I've read part of it, but like, um, he has some really great things. The other thing was Saint Thomas Aquinas. I really want to get into Thomas Aquinas some more. I'm kind of going through like a morning devotion with Thomas Aquinas right now, and so some really great thing. And one of the books I wanted to share, which I thought was helpful, maybe your viewers if they like to read. One of the things that was coming from I think I had mentioned this in our. Hopefully, I'm not going too long-winded, or if you need to leave or whatever. But one of the big things coming out of Reformed theology was how they viewed the atonement, right? And I think I kind of
Yeah.
mentioned this to you a
Yeah.
little bit. Like penal substitution was kind of like what they tend to believe, right, in that camp. And I'm not going to speak for everybody, but at least in the New Age Calvinism, like or not New Age, but the New Calvinism, penal substitution is kind of their thing. And so that's how I always thought of the atonement, like what Christ did on the cross. And um, come to find out, like that is not what a majority of the church and the majority of the history of the church has believed. And so I picked up a book that was recommended about this topic, about vicarious satisfaction, called I have it sitting right here with me. It's called "What Is Redemption" by Felipe de la Trente.
I have
And
it.
it's all. Oh, do you have that? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. It's good.
Cool. So I'm reading that. It's he takes a lot of Thomas Aquinas thoughts and kind of regurgitates them, for people who yeah. So I'm reading that right now, and it's been great. It's been a great thing. So Aquinas is another one I want to kind of get into more. So
All right. Besides the Gospels, what's your favorite book of the Bible?
yeah, Whew. That's a good one for the Gospels. Besides the Gospels.
I mean, should we include the Gospels? Does that make it
Yeah, I
easier for
mean,
you?
the Gospels are good. The Gospels are good. I'm reading John right now. I just got done with Matthew, and I would say I do really like Matthew, but let's say we can't do that. I don't know. That's a hard one. I don't know, the story Exodus and the story of Moses, and
Right.
kinda and just seeing God's faithfulness in, like, Israel's continue unfaithfulness, but God doesn't abandon them, doesn't
Mhm.
abandon his children. Like, I think there's a lot we can take away from, Exodus through, Joshua, essentially, and Moses leading of the people there, and, even amidst, the kind of rebellion and not coolness of the Israelites, Hebrews during those times. I suppose they weren't Israelites then, but the Hebrews. So
Yeah.
I suppose they are Israelites. But yeah,
Nice. Good answer. All right. Cats
yeah,
or dogs?
yeah. Well, we live out in the country, and I think we have like 7 cats, that kind of barn cats that kind of roam around. But I have a dog as well, so probably a dog if I had to. I'm a big
Nice.
hunting guy, so having a hunting companion has always been kind of a nice thing. So
Yeah.
what about
Trying to,
you? What's
oh,
your favorite book?
I
Do
my favorite
Dog
book,
and yeah.
like of all time. My favorite.
Oh, no,
Oh,
no,
the
no, sorry,
Bible.
sorry. Yeah, the Bible. The question you asked me.
So New Testament would be First John, and then if
Okay.
you were to ask me Old Testament, it'd be the Psalms. But
Yeah.
my favorite gospel is Matthew.
Yep.
John's close,
Sure.
but I love the Beatitudes and chapters 5 through 7. I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah.
what's up, man? All
Right. Right.
right. Do you have any other questions, concerns, comments
Come
for
on.
me, for you, for anything
No.
anything?
No, other than we should not let 10 years go by, 11 years go by, communicating with each other. I think this could be a good friendship. So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I appreciate you
Absolutely.
having me on, and hopefully, I don't know everything about anything, and all I know is that my family and I we're going to be faithful, and we're going to continue to be faithful to God and His Word, and what He reveals to us. And so, pray for us that we are have a teachable spirit, and that we just keep being salt and light to the earth, to the world, in this journey. And yeah, it's been great. It's been good, good,
Absolutely. And
good
everybody
chatting with
that
you.
I'm sorry. Everybody
Understood.
that's watching, please pray for our friend Scott and his family, 4 kids and a wife,
Yeah.
for their discernment, for their journey. And yeah, we'll be praying for you guys, Scott, for sure.
Awesome,
And
man.
you're fine. You'll be fine no
Yeah.
matter what. So just do what you got
Cool.
to do, and everything will be good. So yeah, praise be Jesus and Mary. Hold on, Scott.
Yeah.